Hi everyone, Seven Fraser from Tekwise Financial Planner. I was recently meeting with one of my clients, actually a couple, wanting to look at income planning. How are they going to create an income? They'd spent their whole life kind of generating growth. Now that they're kind of at that spending stage or getting closer to it, how do we switch them to the ability to kind of create an income and live off of that income? Okay. So, I thought was really interesting on why this would be good for the video today is that actually the husband is very aggressive, very comfortable with market volatility. The wife is not. Okay, so we have two people kind of on opposite ends of that, and I think what we're going to have is a solution that's going to work for both of them. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is share my screen with you real quick and kind of walk you through our scenario here. Okay, so we are going to start with $500,000 starting point. So that's going to assume that we have $500,000. We're going to be looking at comparing a fixed index income annuity versus a traditional 60/40 stock bond portfolio. If you're not familiar with what that means, you might have heard people talk about a 60/40 portfolio. It's 60% stock, 40% bonds. Okay. Historically, over the last century or so, that's averaged about 8% a year. Uh, Seemed to be a very moderate base portfolio. And so we're going to run with that and use that and assume net of all of our fees that we're making 8% total return. Okay. The other thing that we're going to assume for our scenario today is a 3% withdrawal rate. Okay. A lot of you may have heard of the 4% rule. It says you can withdraw 4% from a portfolio for the rest of your life without ever having to run out of money. That has been revised a few years ago with interest rates where they've been and where they look to be in the future. It's probably not realistic to think that 4% wouldn't scramble that nest egg. And so it's been revised down to 3. And so that's where we're getting our withdrawal percentage rate from there. Okay. Other things I'll draw your attention to is client is 55 years old. We're going to assume that it starts at age 65 and the payout for the annuity is going to be a joint payout, meaning that if one spouse dies, it continues to pay out like a pension to the remaining spouse. Okay. So the last thing, and I think this is what's really interesting about this, is we're going to work with an extremely conservative 3% return for the fixed index annuity. Now, you might tell me, Evan, why in the world would I ever invest in something that's only going to make 3% when I have something that historically made 8? You know, why would I do that? Well, let's take a look. Okay. Now, for those of you following along at home and are checking out the different annuities out here, the one we're actually going to be working with is what's called the Allianz Benefit Control Annuity or the ABC annuity. Okay. So, with that, what we're going to see here in the first year, so when you turn 65,000 or 65 years old, the annuity is going to pay $51,000. Okay. That'll be your income for the year. The investment portfolio, that 60/40, again, assuming an 8% return, 3% withdrawal rate can only withdraw about 32,000. Okay. So here's what I think is interesting about this and why I think it's going to help for both the husband in our scenario, who's very aggressive, is that for him to be able to invest outside of the annuity and generate this type of income, well, shoot, he's going to have to somehow bump that risk up to 13%. That's extremely hard to do. And the S&P only averages 10%. So now you're going to start introducing some kind of leverage or derivatives or something in that portfolio to try and increase that return, with which comes a ton of risk. Okay. Well, what's our other option? Well, the other option is just to withdraw more out of the portfolio. Well, We already talked about that the rule used to be 4%, and they're revising it down 3% going forward. But now you'd say, okay, well, we'd have to actually go above the old standard. And if we withdrew 4.7%, then we could match the amount of income that would come from the annuity. The last option that you'd have is you can just start with more money. So if you could come up with an extra $295,000, we could build a 60-40 portfolio that would generate you the same amount of income as a $500,000 annuity here. Okay. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Okay. But here's what, you know, I think's really powerful about that is that it allows us to not only work with potentially lower returns. So even if we had an extremely conservative approach and only made that 3%, from an income standpoint, we're still making money hand over fist uh, than a traditional retirement portfolio. Okay. What this will also allow these clients to do is they obviously have more than 500,000. So now what they're going to be able to do is they're going to be able to take the remaining amount of money and they're going to be able to invest it more aggressively as the husband wants because the wife feels very safe knowing that this amount plus her social security in guaranteed money is more than enough to cover their base expenses. And now the husband is free to look at more aggressive options in real estate and things like that outside of the portfolio. Okay. Great. If this is something that you're interested in, you want to learn more about how we create income, because this is only one, it's really actually step one of several steps on how we're going to generate income. Feel free to reach out to me. My phone number here is 719-413-5614. You can check us out at techwisefinancial.com, or you can email me at evan@techwisefinancial.com.